Sober, put 'em in the long ship till he's sober. Oh, ahoy! Welcome aboard the Gallant Goblin. I'm Theo. You must be here to see the Sinister Silver Edition of the Ghosts of Saltmarsh from Beadle Grimm's. Sorry. This is the second premium set by Beadle Grimm's, the first one being the Platinum Edition of Waterdeep Dragon Heist. Let's go ahead and open this one up and see what's inside. This is everything included in the set. You have a large paper area map with battle maps on the back, reusable ship maps, the burlap sack to hold the box. This serves no in-game purpose, but it's really cool. The player map of Skull Dunes, 5 pre-generated characters, 12 short bonus encounters, the package insert, 2 pieces of custom jewelry, a small map of the town of Saltmarsh, 2 DM dungeon maps, the custom DM screen, 30 encounter cards, 20 art cards to show your players, the box itself, which doubles as an in-game object, the reorganized adventure, and 13 in-world documents. The Silver Edition includes the adventure itself, of course. Now, instead of giving you the regular book that you can get in any bookstore, Beadle Grimm's likes to take the adventure and separate it into separate booklets to make it a little bit easier for the DM to manage. Now, Ghosts of Saltmarsh is not your typical campaign book. This is a spiritual successor to Tales of the Yawning Portal. And so it is, instead of one long campaign, it's a series of only slightly connected adventures, so you can take individual ones and insert them into your campaign if you want to. This is a series of 7 adventures, 3 of which actually are connected into a trilogy. That's chapters 2, 3, and 6. But the rest of them are separate. If you do want to run it as a campaign, you can do that. The adventures include a little bit of information about how to tie one to the next, and they are tied together in the same location of Saltmarsh. If you do decide to run it as a campaign, it'll take you from about level 1 to around level 13 or so, depending on how you want to level your characters. Each adventure will tell you what level that you're expected to have your players start at for that adventure. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's in each individual booklet. The first booklet includes Chapter 1, Saltmarsh, which gives you the background, history, important locations, and NPCs who exist in the town of Saltmarsh. And Chapter 2, The Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh, which is an adventure for levels 1 through 3. And in this adventure, the players must investigate an old haunted house that used to be the abode of an aging alchemist until his mysterious disappearance. The second booklet includes chapters 3 through 6. Chapter 3 is Danger at Dunwater, which is an adventure for 3rd level players. The characters are tasked with traveling to a Lizardfolk village near Saltmarsh to find out why the Lizardfolk seem to be acquiring a lot of rather sophisticated weaponry. And this adventure was designed as a follow-up to The Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh. Chapter 4 is Salvage Operation. This is for 4th level characters, and there was a ship that was long thought lost that's spotted drifting at sea. The original owner hires a party to board the ship and recover a precious treasure. Of course, the ship is not as deserted as it seems to be. Chapter 5 is Isle of the Abbey, an adventure for 5th level characters. A local mariners guild puts out a call for help in securing a strategically placed island that they would like to build a lighthouse on. The island appears to be overrun with undead, which is why they needed to hire an adventuring party to handle it. And Chapter 6 is The Final Enemy, which is the end of the trilogy, which is chapters 2, 3, and now chapter 6. And this is for 7th level characters. In this adventure, the Sahuagin are discovered to be threatening the town of Saltmarsh, and the players are asked to infiltrate their fortress and return with information vital to defeating them. The next booklet includes chapters 7 and 8. Chapter 7 is Tamarot's Fate. This is an adventure for 9th level characters. The players are asked to investigate a small island hermitage that has suddenly gone mysteriously quiet. Upon arrival, they find a very grisly scene, and it's up to the party to determine what happened there. And the next chapter, chapter 8, is The Styes. This is the final adventure for characters of level 11 or higher. The party is asked to investigate a series of murders in a small rundown port town called the Styes. And the Styes can be placed as a neighborhood in an existing city if you like. Finally, the last book is the appendices. And this is important because this includes all the information you need to run a ship-based campaign or part of a campaign in whatever adventure you're running. So it has all the stat blocks, all the random encounters, all the rules you need to run those sea-based adventures. So you can use it with this campaign or any campaign where your players happen to upon a ship and set out to sea. And there's also a section with new weapons, new magical items, new monsters, and NPCs. The first thing you'll notice when you open the box is this little pamphlet. Now, they had a pamphlet like this in the Dragon Heist Platinum box, but this one's been revised a little bit, and it actually solves one of the problems that I had with the Platinum box. With that one, you had all sorts of good goodies that you could show your players and give your players as you went through the adventure, but you had to do all the heavy lifting yourself to figure out where to show them, what page each document appeared on, which picture you had to show with each individual encounter. You had to catalog that all yourself. And if you do have the Dragon Heist Platinum box, you can click the eye in the corner of the screen because we did all that work for you. You can watch that video and we'll tell you exactly where to show that. But otherwise, it'd be up to you to do that work. In this pamphlet this time, they actually do give you the page numbers for where each document is shown so you know when to give it to your players. They are not able to actually go into the adventure itself in the booklets they give you in here and annotate in the adventure where these occur. I guess the copyright, whatever license agreement they have with Wizards of the Coast doesn't allow them to do that. But they do give you the information here so you can go make those little annotations yourself. You can go in there with little sticky notes if you want to, but at least you have all the information there so you can do it a little bit more easily. So that's the first big change in this set, in this little pamphlet here. The Sinister Silver Edition includes one large, dry erase marker ready ship map that you can use. This is the Sea Ghost. The map is 2 feet by 2.5 feet. This is a ship that your players may encounter, or probably will encounter, in the second half of the first adventure, The Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh. If they play their cards right, they may be able to capture this ship and use it for the rest of the adventures. On the back, you have another map. This one is a generic large ship that you can use for whatever purpose you need to. Sometimes the players may encounter a random ship in the ocean that they will board or that will board them, and you can use this. The inside, the holds are empty, so you can draw lines to represent the walls of the various rooms or chests or whatever else you want to put on the map. There's a key at the bottom to write the name of the ship, and also a place for a legend to put various icons that you may draw on the map for reference. This set also includes one large paper map. This is the Styes. The Styes is a location in Chapter 8, the final adventure in this book. It is a port section of an existing city, so the book will give you information about how to place this in Eberron and Greyhawk or in the Forgotten Realms. It also has information on the side here about the pertinent locations in the Styes, so you may or may not want your players to know this information, but it's there if you want it. On the back are 2 other locations that are very important for this adventure. You have Landgrave's Folly and the Temple of Tharizdun. One interesting thing is that the Temple of Tharizdun has extra sections, extra areas that are on the east side of the map, and those were cut off in this paper copy. They exist in the book, so you'll have to find another solution for those. But there are encounters that happen in those areas, but the main encounter happens in the locations represented in this map. So this is a big, beautiful map that you can have in your adventures. And these maps look quite different from the ones that are in the book. Here you can see the actual locations in the adventure itself. This set only includes 2 pieces of hardware. The Dragon Heist Platinum set had a lot more, but that partially explains why this one's a bit cheaper. First, you have the Pen of the Cult of Tharizdun, which is a reward for completing Chapter 8, The Styes. And you can give this to your players. The second one is the Sahuagin Baron's Medallion, which is an artifact that you find in Chapter 6. The book recommends that if they don't stumble upon this particular artifact, you could repurpose it as a, maybe the symbol of a pirate, faction or some other artifact that you can present to your players. The cord isn't actually long enough to be able to go over your head, but you could untie it and tie it back around your neck. One thing the Silver Edition didn't skimp on is the documents. You have 13 in all. A lot of these are reproduced from the book. They'll have a little text box when they discover something, and it tells you the text of what the players discovered. And normally you would read that text to the players describing that it's written on a waterlogged document. But here you can just hand them the actual document itself. Other ones of these were actually made out of whole cloth by the people at Beadle and Grimm's. It might say that there was a crude map that they found. And so here, you don't have a picture of that map in the book, but here they've reproduced it for you. So you actually have a little map that you can give them. So let's kind of go through and look at what was in each adventure. So you'll know if you're just going to do a couple of adventures from this set, what you have to work with from that. So from the first adventure, which is the Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh, you have this nice little signal code, which the players have to decipher for themselves. You have this little note, ostensibly from Lizardfolk, based on the signature at the bottom. And this is one of those that is not actually written out in the book, that the people at Beadle and Grimm's wrote themselves based on a little bit of information in the book. You have a very cute translation guide to go from common into Goblin, written on a nice waterlogged piece of paper that actually is a little bit crinkled. And finally, this is one of the maps that they invented for this adventure that shows the location of something special. In the second adventure, which is Danger at Dunbar, you have this nice certificate of citizenship for the town of Saltmarsh. Has a place for you to write the characters' names in if they successfully complete what they need to do. And on the back are quite a few little funny footnotes that they can discover on their own. Also in that adventure, you have this letter. It's called a scroll in the book, and it's regarding the Alliance, something they can discover too. The next adventure is Salvage Operation. It only has one document, but it's a special one. This is maybe the best looking document in this bunch. It is a waterlogged, water-damaged, difficult to read, crinkled back log from the captain of the ship. Then they can spend a good bit of time trying to decipher this. The next adventure is called the Isle of the Abbey, and you only have one little note here that you can use, a funny little note that the characters can discover when they're plundering treasure. A couple of these, like the Goblin translation guide and this little letter, and even the map possibly, you may be able to repurpose in other adventures that you're running, so you can kind of keep some of these. They're not so specific as to only be useful in Saltmarsh. The next adventure is The Final Enemy. And it has this one document, but it's a nice Lizardfolk rendering of a layer that the players will have to discover. And this is another one that the people at Beadle and Grimm created based on just a very short description in the book. The next adventure is Temerat's Fate. You have two documents for that. You have a journal page here, front and back. And you also have this little handwritten verse that the players can discover. Finally, in the Styes, you have two documents. You have a note regarding the Whisperer that's also a little bit textured. And finally, you have a note that they find in a ritual book. So those are the documents. This is one of my favorite parts of this whole set, being able to hand these documents over to the players and let them read them themselves and agonize over what they mean is so much better than just reading them the text out of the book. This is something that they can actually have and hold, and even hold on to if you let them, and have a lot of fun with. There are a few maps in here that are for use for the DM only to have behind your screen. These are actually reproductions of the maps in the regular book, or the booklets they provide you, but of the various dungeons. But they annotate on here the location of the enemies for you, so that as you're going through, you don't have to refer to the different numbers in the chapter to know what's happening in that particular room as far as enemies go. So they provide this for the big dungeons in the adventure. That's in Chapter 6, you have the Sahuagin layer. It has 3 levels. They provide you a map of each level. There's level 1, level 2, and on a separate page, level 3. And they also provide the Lizardfolk layer in Chapter 3. And so, like I said, these are regular ones, but they just have the annotations for the enemy locations written on them. Now this is similar to the Maps and Miscellany pack from Dungeon of the Mad Mage. You can click the eye in the corner of the screen to see that video. That pack provided you dry erase maps where you could annotate yourself the locations of the enemies or whatever you wanted to. Those were blank maps. And you could rewrite on those as you wanted to because they were dry erase. These are not dry erase, these are regular glossy paper, but the annotations have been done for you, so you don't have to worry about that. So these are a nice tool to use when you're running those adventures. They also provide you a DM map of the town of Saltmarsh with the locations of the points of interest written down on here. Just the numbers, though, you have to actually refer to the booklet to find out what the numbers stand for, but it's a good tool to have behind your screen. One of the more interesting encounters is in Chapter 5, Isle of the Abbey, and it's called the Skull Dunes. This is a little map that you can give your players. When they land at the island, they have to navigate their way through this series of sand dunes. And along this beach are buried a ton of skeletons who can rise up out of the ground to attack the player characters as they make their way through if they stumble along the wrong path. Now, this sheet is laminated in such a way where you can use dry erase markers. So as the players navigate their way through the dunes, they can mark the locations of where they find some skeletons. According to the official rules, the way this encounter happens is that the lead character makes a perception check, and whatever their role is how far along the optimal path they can go before they encounter trouble. And then they have to go one square at a time after that. But with a roll of 20, they're able to basically skip this adventure, this encounter altogether. So since you have this nice little map, and the corresponding DM's version is in the booklet, so the DM has the locations of all the zombies, how many are in each, or the skeletons, how many are in each square, and what the optimal path is through here. But since you have all these nice tools, you may want to redesign the encounter in such a way where you get a little bit more fun out of it, because there's some interesting things that can happen in these dunes besides just encountering some skeletons. So maybe you'll want to have them make a series of survival checks to find the path, or perception checks to look for zombie bones or skeleton bones in the dunes. And you can kind of play with that as you like, just to make sure that you get the most use out of this encounter as you can, because it is a fun one. Beadle and Grimm's took a slightly different approach to the bonus encounters in this set. Whereas in the last one, they provided a couple of encounters that are fairly fleshed out, this one essentially gives you a little random encounter table that you can roll on that has 12 different small encounters. Now, in the book itself, in the regular adventure, they have random encounter tables, but it just says, they encounter 1d4 water elementals, and it's up to you to provide any kind of story behind that. This one gives you a little bit of story to go with. I don't want to tell you the exact stories for spoiler purposes, and so that you be encouraged to buy this yourself. But I'll kind of give you a little hint of some of the things that they set up that you can explore. So this is on one page, front and back, and some of the encounters that they have are the crew member spotting a narwhal carcass floating in the ocean, a crew member getting sick, 2 wyverns flying nearby that the crew spots, a dragon turtle rising out of the sea, an encounter with a ghost ship, another one with a pirate ship. They find a shipwreck victim floating in the ocean who has an interesting story. There's an encounter with a pair of merfolk. There's an interesting illness that can inflict a player character. There's an unexpected encounter during a storytelling session around a campfire. There's a crew member seeing some bubbles percolating up to the surface of the ocean, and an encounter with some mysterious floating lights. So these are just a few extra encounters that you can have in your adventure, and they have a little bit more story involved than the ones that are in the book itself. This is the special DM screen included in the Sinister Silver Edition. They commissioned their own piece of artwork for this, as you can see on the front of my screen here. One nice thing is that if you use the pre-generated characters that they included in this set in the adventure, the players will be able to see themselves reflected on the screen. All of the players that you see down here, all the characters, are those pre-generated characters. But let's turn this around and take a look and see what's on the back of the screen, because that's what really matters, right? On the back of the Sinister Silver Edition GM screen, on the leftmost panel, you have the stats and movement information for a warship and a longship. On the second panel, you have random encounter tables with monsters ordered by challenge rating, and there's a list for coastal monsters, swamp monsters, and underwater monsters. You also have the rules for swimming and the stats of movement for a keelboat. On the third screen here, you have the rules for swimming in deep water and underwater visibility. You also have the rules for crashing ships, and the stat and movement information for sailing ships and rowboats. And on the final screen over here, you have underwater visibility ranges, the rules for underwater combat, which are very important, rules for encountering storms, what each crew leader is supposed to do in their ability checks when they encounter trouble, and the results of those checks. And finally, you have a list of quick ship names in case you have to come up with one on the fly. The Silver Edition includes 5 pre-generated characters that you can use to jump right into the action. Each one is on its own sheet of paper and includes everything you need to get started. You have the stat block, you have the personality traits, the ideal, the bond, the flaw, equipment, and a lot of them have a little piece of starting equipment too. Now these characters don't have a very strong tie into the adventure. There's no grand mystery that they're trying to solve, although a lot of them have the seed that you can use to build that yourself if you want to. Also interesting to note that most of these characters aren't gendered, so the players can take them and gender them as they wish. So let's go through and look at a little bit of each one individually. The first two are actually gendered themselves as a brother and sister pair. The first one is Aquiel Greenwater. Aquiel is a half sea elf druid with an outlander background. She has a very calm disposition, but she can become obsessed after she receives visions from Deep Seychelles, who's the deity of the aquatic elves. Instead of having the outlander feature wanderer, like her brother does in the next section, she receives these visions telling her about serious imbalances that are going on in the seas and things that she needs to take care of. She comes with the Spear of the Eel, which allows her to cast the Shocking Grasp cantrip as a bonus action once per day. The second character is her brother, Arimil Greenwater. He is a half sea elf ranger with the outlander background as well. They're both from the Mere of the Dead Men along the Sword Coast between Waterdeep and Neverwinter. Their mother was killed by Sahuagin, and now he gets into a blind rage every time he encounters one. His favorite enemy is the Sahuagin and Lizardfolk, and his favorite terrain is the swamp, and he comes with 1 dose of Keotome's ointment. The next character is named Deek Cook, also known as Jambon Deluxe. It's a halfling rogue with a charlatan background. And Deek's been jumping from crew to crew, creating scandals everywhere he goes, to the point where the name Deek Cook is no longer welcome in most ports. And so he had to go and change his name. So there was born Jambon Deluxe. And he's the adventurer extraordinaire. And he comes with 2 potions of climbing. The next character is Anaki Xi. She or he is a human sorcerer with a far traveler background. Anaki is an exile from Karatur. He or she is trying to bring honor back to their family. They have a tattoo of comprehension on their right arm, which allows them to cast the comprehend languages spell once per day. Finally, we have Gaarz, the deadly Lizardfolk lieutenant from the Mere of the Dead Men. Gaarz is a barbarian with a soldier background, and Gaarz was a member of the warlike tribe of Lizardfolk in the Mere of the Dead Men. He or she was the only survivor of an attack on their tribe, after which a great unnamed serpent appeared out of the swamp and spoke to them about the great destiny ahead for them. And this deity gave Gaarz a charm of the scale, which allows them to use their reaction to roll a wisdom saving throw with advantage once per day. One thing to note is that Gaarz and the Greenwater siblings are all from the Mere of the Dead Men. Now, there's no indication that they know each other. There's nothing in these character sheets that tie any of the characters together, but having 3 from that location gives you the opportunity to draw some character ties between them. Also, Chapter 3, which is called Danger at Dunwater, actually can take place at the Mere of the Dead Men, and it involves a Lizardfolk tribe. So there's some opportunities for you as a GM to write some backstory that will tie into these adventures. One tradition that this set is continuing from the last set are the use of encounter cards. These are nice cards with the art of the monster that your players may be fighting on the front, and on the back for the GM to see are all the stats and the story information that you need to run the encounter. So this set includes 30 of them. Here you can see an example of the Sahuagin. Here's a merfolk. And on the screen now you can see all the other ones included in this set, 30 in total. The Platinum Edition of Dragon Heist included 40 in total. So with the 2 together, you've got quite a few that you can use not only in this adventure, but in future campaigns that you may run. There are 2 that are identical between the sets. That would be the Skeleton and the Goblin. Also, the Slod is more or less identical. The card in this set includes the information for a Slad Tadpole, but otherwise they're identical. So these are very nice to have in order to run encounters, allowing the players to see the artwork for the monsters and for you to have the information at hand to run the encounter properly. The only problem is that you have to keep track for yourself which of these cards that you have, and maybe if you want to annotate it in the booklets with a highlighter or some other note so that you know that you have these cards to show during the encounters, you need to do that. Nowhere in the pamphlet or on the cards themselves does it tell you, that you have these cards or where they're used in the adventure. The only thing that I wish these cards did have that they don't is the location of these stat blocks in the books. So it doesn't tell you, this monster's from the monster manual or this one's from the Saltmarsh adventure itself. So you pretty much have to go with what's on the card or, look it up on D&D Beyond or your own books to know where the full, if there's a little bit more information possibly for some of them, you have to go find that for yourself. But pretty much everything you need to run is on these cards. So this is another addition to the Sinister Silver Edition. Another nice feature carried over from the Dragon Heist set is the artwork that they included. Now, they took the artwork out of the main book and reproduced it on these little nice pieces of paper that you can put over your DM screen to show off to the players. Normally, the players probably wouldn't get to see this because it's in the book and you don't necessarily want to have the book in your hand and try to cover up the pertinent information and just show them the art. That can be a little bit hard to do. So here you can make sure that all the fantastic artwork that Wizards of the Coast produced, they can see for themselves. Each of the pages this time includes the information of where it's located. So you have the name of the artwork, you have the artist, and the actual location of each one. So this one says location chapter 1, page 21, and there's 2 on each page, and the information is there provided for you. So these are very nice. Keep in mind that this is not original art by Beadle and Grimm's. Last time they had a few pieces of art that they produced specifically for the Dragon Heist edition. But this one is all the artwork from the original adventure, just reproduced on these pieces of paper. Let me show you which ones are in each chapter so you can know again what you have to work with. If you're just going to do one chapter, you'll know, this is the artwork that you can show. So quickly, this is from chapter 1. This is the introduction to Saltmarsh. There are 20 pieces of art in all that you can show your players. Here are the ones for the Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh, that's chapter 2. Chapter 3, Danger at Dunwater. There's only one for chapter 4, Salvage Operation. These are in chapter 5, Isle of the Abbey. This is chapter 6, The Final Enemy. Chapter 7, Tamarat's Fate. And chapter 8, The Styes. And finally, you have this nice picture of a whale that you can show whenever is appropriate. Finally, one thing that's interesting is that the back of the box can actually represent Aubreck's iron box, which is the centerpiece of chapter 4, which is called Salvage Operation. This is the artifact that the players are trying to recover off the ship. So it plays very heavily into that adventure. So that's a nice little bonus that you have here with the box. So that's the Sinister Silver edition of Saltmarsh. Let's talk about some of the differences between this set, which is $175, and the previous Platinum edition of Waterdeep Dragon Heist, which was about $500. This one had no minis, which were the Nolzur's Marvelous Minis that you could buy elsewhere. There's less hardware. There's paper maps instead of canvas maps in this one. There's no copy for D&D Beyond, no Adventures League item. There's no tile maps. There's no custom art. But there are more random encounters. They're a little bit less detailed, but there's more of them. There's the same number of documents, or maybe a few more, depending on how you count. And the documents in this set, I think, are fantastic. It still has the characters. It still has the encounters. It has that fantastic DM screen with the artwork featuring these characters that your players may be playing, which I think is a fabulous addition to the set. And this one is not labeled as a limited edition, so you can still go out and buy it. The previous one was limited to 1,000 copies, and they're all sold out, so you have to buy it on the aftermarket. This one you can still purchase. We actually talked to the folks at Beadle and Grimm's when we went to D&D Live in Los Angeles about a month or two ago. And some of the information we got from them is that based on the feedback that they got for the last edition, they decided that they didn't want to include anything in a Platinum edition that you could buy elsewhere. So that's why they're going to get rid of the minis. And I don't expect to see, especially those Nolzur's Marvelous Minis, in any future set. They may have their own custom minis, but you won't see those pre-existing ones. Also, they did fix one of the big problems I had with the last Platinum edition, in that you had to catalog everything in order to know when to use all the fabulous documents and artwork that you had. In the pamphlet here that I talked about earlier, they had that information for you, so you can pretty much be ready to hit the road. But you still have to annotate the actual adventure yourself because they're not allowed to change what's in the actual adventure. So they can't put a little annotation there saying, there's a document to present or there's artwork to show. So one of the recommendations I gave them was that maybe they could include a little sticker sheet that has that information, like document to show, that you could take the sticker off and put it in their adventure so you don't miss those things. So we'll see if they do something like that in the future, because that's the only thing missing, I think, at this point. The next set from Beadle and Grimm's is the Platinum Edition of Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. This is coming out in October, supposedly, which is about a month after the adventure hits the bookshelves. It's going to be another $500 edition and is going to be limited to 1,000 copies. So if you want that, you might want to hit the link in the description of this video and go and pre-order it for yourself today. Hopefully, we've shown you everything you need to know about the silver edition of the Ghost of Saltmarsh, so you can decide if this is a good use of your money. And maybe it depends on how much of this adventure you want to run, since it is a compendium of less connected adventure. So you might not want to do the whole thing, but this shows you what this set has to offer. If you like this video, please go ahead and like it. You can subscribe to our channel. We do a lot of videos on minis, on other D&D products that may enhance your games at home. You can also let us know in the comments below what you think of this edition. We're always happy to hear from you. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, where we have conversations about upcoming minis and products, and we showcase some of the behind the scenes of the making of our channel. So thank you for watching today. Welcome aboard the Gallant Goblin, and we'll see you next time.